Alright, this is for a user on Reddit from one of the threads I follow. I asked him if he wanted a critique, and he said yes. So, the first thing that I would say right off the bat is that ultimately the biggest issue that you have is kind of one, anatomy and proportions, and two, depth and contrast. And so I'm going to just leave the one on the right alone here, and I'm going to kind of go over some things right off the bat. So first of all, the issue that you've got is you've got your base perspective going on, and I'm just going to kind of grab this tool here, and I'm just going to show you real quick that your perspective for the most part is okay. Everything kind of lines up in this general area. Some things are a little bit off, like this here, but for the most part you want to make sure things kind of line up exactly right. So the problem that you have is perspective is a little bit off, but that's not the main issue. The main issue is ultimately that you are not separating your values enough, and you're not considering kind of the backdrop of things. So I'm just got a little triangle brush here, looks like that, and I'm going to be using that to pretty much paint everything. So the first thing I would say right off the bat is that you're doing a 1-point perspective, but then you're throwing some other like 2-point and 3-point stuff in here as well. And that's kind of causing an issue with the way things are going. So first of all, let's solve some of the backdrop here. The first problem with backdrop is that you are kind of building off, like this side building here just kind of ends, and it feels kind of awkward. And so what I would do is let's take, and I'm just going to use some real sketchy lines here, and I'm going to kind of draw, and you've almost got like a 3-point perspective. So you've got a point perspective up here coming down, which is okay, but you need to have some sense of like where things are going. And so when you've got like this, broken apart here, and even if we're doing something like this, and I'm just breaking this apart like so, this piece here you want to have consistently in the same area too. So what happens is this is going in the wrong area, and so you need to have that consistently going vertical as well, or along that vanishing point. And then the other aspect is you have things coming in here, but you don't have things kind of lining up. So like I would have a horizon line coming down like this, which is fine, but then like after everything else it gets kind of wonky, because they're like this goes under the horizon line and things like that. So what I would do right off the bat before I do anything is I'm going to just kind of sketch out some things, and I'm going to rough out some colors here. So first of all, let's rough out some nice lighting here. I'm just going to take the polygon tool here, and I'm just going to kind of rough out some of this backspace lighting here. And I'm just going to really quickly kind of rough that out and kind of put some highlight, like our backlight, in there. Now I can go reverse here and go a lot darker and things like that, and that's fine. And then I'm going to start adding in this little space here, I'm going to add in more geometry. So what that means is, you want to have this building, these buildings kind of come up. So at that point, then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of put up some lights as far as that goes, and then still maintain kind of this process of like, okay, we've got different buildings and different things going on here, and you want to have like separation of elements. And you can always have and add in things like, we can add in the idea of like, lights and things like that. But I can't have that as a major part of this. I'm just going to add some antennas, maybe a little light here or whatever. And so that's the first thing is we want to have that separation of elements. Okay, so you see how by doing that, like now I feel this is a lot more sky-like, and I can even go in here and put a little gradient in here. If I can find the gradient. If I put a little gradient in here, I can go a little bit higher, make sure I'm not on multiply, make sure, let's do an overlay or screen here. And so that gives us kind of the idea that the light is coming from the city itself, and so we have those aspects. All right, and then again we're going back and we're fixing some of these elements here. So just going to pick some of these elements here and kind of block out my initial shapes, keeping things really consistently. And you'll notice here that I'm coloring over the reds because I'm trying to unify the colors a little bit more. I can always add in some of these other colors here, like as reflections or things like that, the pinks and stuff. But if you've got too many colors going on, it's just kind of chaotic. And I get you want some chaos, but we also want to have a semblance of like what's going on here. So I'm just kind of putting in building plots. I'm going to darken this up here as well, and let's even add some of that purple in there. And so that's taking some of my color spectrum down, and then I can even add in other plans here, like maybe some dark lines, things like that. But ultimately, I can always add in a little bit more colors, things like that. Okay. Then the next thing is, this is my backdrop here. So this is my, I have a light source. It's being cast, and so I want to pay attention to where my light source is being cast. So I'm going to use my screen mode, and I'm just going to really quickly block out some of this, and using the gradient I'm going to use circle and just kind of give me some more highlight there, and that's going to give me a little bit more contrast. The next thing I'm going to do is, like, you've got your mart here, and that's fine, but the issue you have going on is that there's too much perspective. So if you're going to have signs here, let's block out this sign here. Let's put another sign over here. Let's add in, one over here on this corner. And we're going to add some primary colors like yellow. And maybe simplify this a little bit more. And basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to separate these elements into more individualized parts, because what's going on is everything kind of blends together. I want more, I want better separation. I want like more unified terminology, like what is reading and what is not reading well. Okay, if you've got a garbage bag sitting here, it should be in scale. So this is too huge. So I'm cutting some of that down, that garbage bag down. I'm going to put some more of that garbage bag around here, like so. I'm going to even put some over here. So like I can tell what's going on as far as like Like I get a better feel of like, okay, this is the garbage bag. I feel like the city is dirty then, and you can always put things on the ground, like adding in little bits of paper here, adding some paper here, some grunge, things like that are going to help you out quite a bit as well. It defines my ground plane a little bit more, and kind of creates more of a spectrum of like, this is what's going on here. So I'm just gonna kind of block some of this stuff out here. Really kind of simple shapes, and kind of create more identifying marks of like, this is what's going on here. And a lot of this is really about like you're putting that pixelated look in here. I can't think of the name offhand, but you're putting that pixelated look in here, and it's basically creating more noise and more interest in the figure than what you've got going on here. So I'm just gonna kind of paint over her. So here's this. Let's get rid of this big white here, and let's add in some lights. You know, we can again add in, you know, like a light here. We can add in some light over here. And again, I'm just roughing this in just to show you kind of where you're going. And I can kind of rough this back, and I'm just going to hide some of this here. I'm not worried about where the character is. You can have a little bit darker alley and things like that in there. So on and so forth. We're going to add in some more noise on the foreground here. Let's add some pinks over here. Just kind of adding some color. Maybe we're going to do black here. I don't know. I'm not writing anything in particular. This will be white, so we're just kind of writing, you know, that down. We want a softer light, so maybe I'll just add a little bit of a blue glow here. And fade some of that out. And even this character here, I'm just going to kind of fade some of that out. And we're going to go back in space, and it's going to get darker, so we're going to add like this. And I'm just going to add some dark shapes here. So like some dark vehicles. And we'll add some highlights in the back. Some brake lights. Let's add some stuff in the backdrop here, maybe like some signage or something like that. But as you go back, these colors are going to get more and more muted, as well as, you know, just kind of blocking things out. I really like the idea of separating my background and foreground. And so those are things that you want to really pay attention to when you're doing kind of your design work here. Separating, you know, I want shape, I want that form. And then even here, like I can mute some of this by putting a little bit of more blue or you know, mid-tone. So once that's in there, like that's the type of thing that I'm adding in, and adding in more shape. Now, the character itself. So the character itself it's kind of a weird struggle. Like, I don't know if you're trying to kick. I don't know if you're trying to step. I don't know what's going on with the character. It's in a weird pose. It feels like it's bending down. And it's really disproportionate. So let's build on top of it. So the first thing is I have to meet the perspective needs. So if the character is standing up, I'm basically drawing, and I'll draw in white here just to kind of show you. I'm basically drawing in this perspective manner. So this is kind of my character design. Now the character needs to meet this spectrum here. So if I'm drawing like right next to this building, that character is probably only going to be this tall. I don't want that. I want that character pushed forward a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that character forward a little bit more, and in order to get her, again, looking like kind of in perspective and kind of working on this idea, I'm going to keep this as a ladder here, and I'm going to just kind of draw on top of it. So I'm just going to really quickly sketch out my body. Oops. Let's try this again. So I'm going to really quickly sketch out my body and a little torso, and then bell curve for the hips. And to make it more interesting, like, I know you want the focal of the character, but if I'm facing the character forward, the problem I have is that I'm not looking at the building. Like, I'm going to look at her, and I'm going to look at it this way. So I'm going to kind of cheat, and I'm going to put her in the backdrop like so, and I'm going to put her going forward or backwards. So like here, all right, this is forward, this is forward like this, and then this is backward and backward like that. So I'm just going to match that. And I mean, I can maybe even have her kind of looking around on her shoulder, and then let's start coloring. So we're going to basically put the pink outfit. I can put this underneath. I'm going to use the face right here. And then we're going to put the midsection here. And I'm going to use this purple hair. And with the purple hair, I'm going to blow that a little bit off to the side, like this. And then again, we're going to go back in and add in those long gloves here, and then let's add in let's add in the shadows. And I think that foot needs to be placed over, but it gives you an idea of this rough placement for this character. So if I have that rough idea, and then we're going to add a little bit of this highlight here. A little bit more gray. So we can add in some highlight coming in from this side, and we can add in, you know, a little bit of red, or like some of this hot pink, and we can make that hot pink a little bit more white on this side. The hair can shine. We can show a little bit more of this. So what I'm doing is I'm using that white to basically create a little bit more kind of development as far as that character goes. And again, face. peach color here. Something along lines like this. But does that give you a better idea? Like, your goal is to make me, the viewer, look at this as long as possible. And so with this idea right now, I'm looking at her character first. I'm looking down at the ground, and I keep going because her legs push me down. This pushes me down. The shadow kind of pushes me down, and I run off the page. Whereas by changing this, I'm pulling in some different ideas. So what I'm doing is this is drawing my attention here, moving me to this one, moving me to this one, moves me to this one. And then that kind of brings me back in with the shadow. Whereas now I'm walking forward and I'm looking down this way. So what I'm doing is I'm basically circling around. But ultimately, those are things that you want to kind of pay attention to from that development standpoint, is separate your elements a little bit more, give me a little bit more foreground, middle ground, background, and then try and keep me on the page a little bit more. The anatomy is, get some reference for the anatomy, because right now it just feels kind of an awkward pose. I always recommend that if you pose like the character does and you don't feel comfortable, that generally means that that character doesn't feel comfortable, and the viewers look at it and realize that too. So those are things that you want to think about and you want to add in there. Always go in, jump in your layers, and kind of play around with some things. You can see here, just add some highlights, add some more trash bags, but my focus should be this main character. And don't feel like you need to pull out some of this stuff too. So if your character doesn't read as well, maybe we add a little bit more darkness to pull the character out. So maybe we add a little bit more darkness to pull the character out. And by doing that, by adding a little bit more darkness, I'm separating the character. I'm adding a little bit more of that aspect in there. So again, think about your perspective, get your shapes down there, and overall, I think that works better for your kind of process. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this. This is all live, and I'm not going to edit it really. So it gives you an idea of where you can go in real time to kind of make some changes. All right? I hope that helps.